Desmond Tutu is the Archbishop of South Africa. He's the big, and by the way, Bones fan asked about Christians in Africa. Desmond Tutu is supposed to be he's probably the most prominent Christian clergyman in Africa. Look at him. What a leftist piece of vermin. Desmond Tutu called for the destruction of Israel, condemned Zionism, and has called for the destruction of Israel. He called for the destruction of Israel at a reformed so-called temple in New York. The reformed Jewish traders at that temple cheered him and gave him a standing ovation when he attacked Zionism, which Zionism means a Jewish state. If you attack Zionism, it means you're attacking the existence of a Jewish state. And that's what he did. And I'm going to give you some quotes from Desmond Tutu. Here are some quotes from Desmond Tutu, and I quote. This is a quote from Cape Times, which is a newspaper in Cape Town. This quote comes from July 23rd, 1986, and I quote, "If you want to create a panic among whites, you would find an easy target in their children," unquote. You hear what he's saying here? You should attack the children of whites. That's an easy target. That'll create a panic. Murder their children. That'll create a panic. Let me repeat that. If you want to create a panic among whites, you will find an easy target in their children, unquote. And again, that's in the Cape Times in Cape Town, South Africa, July 23rd, 1986. Here's another quote from the peaceful, wonderful Gandhi, this Mahatma Gandhi type. I don't like Mahatma Gandhi either, but this supposedly peaceful guy, Desmond Tutu. Here's another quote from him, and this is from Volkskrant, which is a newspaper in Holland, November 15th, 1984, and I quote, "Is it not surprising that black resistance has not yet blown up a school bus with white children? They are the softest targets," unquote. Again, calling for murdering white children. He wants white children to be blown up. He's openly calling for it. Let me read that one more time. "Is it not surprising that black resistance has not yet blown up a school bus with white children? They are the softest targets," unquote. And then he has another recommendation. This civil rights leader. Here's another recommendation that he has. And again, this is in Volkskrant, which is a newspaper in Holland, November 15, 1984, and I quote, "What would happen if only 30% of domestic servants in white households would poison their employer's food?" Unquote. He's calling for poisoning. In other words, white people who are dumb enough to hire blacks to work for them, he's saying the blacks should poison the food of the people who are nice enough to give these ignorant animals a job. He's saying that they should poison the food of the people they work for. Someone hires somebody as a cook or whatever, as a domestic servant. He's saying they should poison their food and murder the people who give them a job. And one more, because he's talking about the Jews. Here's another quote from him. This is in the Jewish Standard, December 15th, 1986, and I quote, "In terms of the New Testament, the Jews must suffer. Therefore, we will put it into practice if we will be in charge, and there will be no sympathy for the Jews when the blacks take over," unquote. Let me repeat that. In terms of the New Testament, the Jews must suffer. Therefore, we will put it into practice if we will be in charge, and there will be no sympathy for the Jews when the blacks take over, unquote. Okay, and that's the Jewish Standard, December 15th, 1986. Now, notice the type of quotes that this wonderful civil rights leader, this religious, the most prominent religious clergyman in the continent of Africa, this most prominent black African religious clergyman, Archbishop, he's the Archbishop of South Africa. Look at the type of comments that he makes. Look at the type of remarks he makes. He calls for blowing up and murdering white children. We should blow up and murder white children, he says. Poisoning white people's food, and making the Jews suffer and have no sympathy or mercy for the Jews, and make them suffer. Those are the type of statements he makes. Now, what if a white archbishop had said something like this about blacks or about Arabs or about Muslims? What would happen to that white archbishop? What if a white archbishop said, "Let's blow up and murder all the black children or the Arab children, the Muslim children"? Can you imagine what the reaction would be? What if a rabbi went around speaking like this? What would the reaction of this gorilla be if a rabbi went around saying black children should be blown up and killed? Or what would the reaction be if And then he says the Jews must suffer, and we'll show no mercy toward them, if no sympathy for them when we take over. What if a white person has said the blacks must suffer according to the Bible, and we'll show them no sympathy? According to the Bible, they're supposed to suffer, and that's going to be our policy, and we're going to show them no sympathy if we take over. What if a white or a Jewish clergyman had made a statement like that? What would the reaction be then? We live in a world that is sick with double standards and injustice and evil. Desmond Tutu is evil. South Africa is evil. Black Africa is evil. The African continent is evil. That stinking, godforsaken continent of flies and AIDS and elephant excrement is a continent that we should have nothing to do with. We should not be saving them. If not for us, they would have left to their own devices, they would self-destruct. They all would have been dead of AIDS already, left to their own devices, if not for Whitey coming in and giving them free medicine and explaining to them that you should be careful and you should practice sex this way and all the other things that they're telling them. If not for that, do you know that 50% of black males in their 20s are infected with the AIDS virus? If left to their own devices, first of all, tens of millions of them already are infected. If left to their own devices, they would wipe themselves out. It's white medicine and white intervention and white education and white missionaries and whites going there that are saving them. And they hate the people who save them, and they bite the hand that feeds them, and they never accomplish anything, and they never achieve anything, and then they call themselves archbishops and preach hatred against the people who help them and who save them. If not for the people they hate and condemn like this, the people that Desmond Tutu wants to blow up, he and his people would all be dead already. They all would have had AIDS. They would have been wiped out by the AIDS virus already. If not for whites, they wouldn't even know these ignoramuses. They wouldn't know what causes AIDS. They would continue with their practices until they all died. And without white medicine, they all would die. White people give them free medicine and billions of dollars, and then they complain and say, "Oh, you're trying to destroy." And they blame the whites who are saving them. They say the whites are the ones who are giving them AIDS. Or the Jews that give money to try to help them, they say the Jews are the ones that are spreading AIDS. The whites, the Jews, they blame all the people that try to help them for trying to destroy them. Why would we want to help people like this? The hell with them. Let them do what they're so wonderful, they're so great, they have such a great culture they claim, and let them do it on their own. That's all I'm saying. Let them do it on their own. Let's see how they get along on their own, without Whitey there to bail them out.